Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles, sitting in that absurdly overpriced restaurant with my wife and her family. I felt it in my bones, this place of wealth. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over Condé tables draped in pristine white servers, moved like shadows in their black uniforms, carrying plates of steak that probably cost more than my car payment. It wasn't my kind of place. If it were up to me, we'd be at a cozy mid-range steakhouse where I didn't have to pretend to enjoy conversations about designer handbags and exclusive vacation resorts. But it was never up to me. CLA, my wife, was in her element. She sat between her sister Kathy and their mother Brenda, both of them dressed in the kind of deceptively simple dresses that cost a fortune. Across from me sat Claire's father John, a man whose presence always felt more like a board meeting than a family gathering. He sipped his whiskey, his expression unreadable. I focused on my steak, chewing slowly, ignoring the subtle barbs Brenda had been throwing at me all night. So still working that same job, she asked, her voice dripping with polite contempt. I nodded, not bothering to look up still at it. I heard they laying people off in your field, she continued. You must be worried. I swallowed down my frustration with a sip of water. CLA didn't come to my defense. She never did when it came to her mother. Instead, she smirked, twirling the stem of her wine glass between her fingers. Kathy giggled. It must be exhausting, working so much and still barely keeping up. Her voice was smooth, calculated. John simply leaned back, watching me like a man who already knew exactly how this night would end. I should have seen it coming. The waiter arrived with the bill, placing the small leather folder on the table. I didn't reach for it. We had agreed to split it beforehand, and I was already irritated that I had to sit through this charade. At the very least, I wouldn't be paying for a dinner I barely enjoyed. Then CLA did something that made my stomach drop. She pushed the bill toward me. Go ahead. Pay it, she said lightly, almost amused. I frowned. I thought we were splitting. She laughed, but not the warm, genuine laugh she used to have when we first met. This one was cold, practiced, the kind that made my skin crawl. It's your job to pay, she said. If you don't like it, get a divorce. You're not part of our family anyway. The words hit like a slap. My gaze snapped to her, then to Brenda, who looked satisfied, and Kathy, who bit her lip, stifling a laugh. JN simply raised his glass in silent acknowledgement. They planned this. I glanced down at the bill, my stomach twisting. $928. My fingers curled around the edge of the table, jaw tightening. The entire night had been a setup, the fancy restaurant, the casual jabs, the way they had ordered, without restraint, bottles of wine, imported seafood, the most expensive dishes on the menu they never planned to pay. This wasn't just dinner. This was humiliation. A test. I looked at Claire, searching for even the smallest sign that this was a joke. A smirk, a raised eyebrow. Something, but she just stared back, waiting, daring me to protest. My blood ran cold. I could feel the weight of every eye in the restaurant on me for a brief moment. I considered pulling out my wallet, swallowing the rage and letting them win one last time. But then Brenda spoke. A man should be able to take care of his family, she said, her lips twisting into something like a smile. If it's such a hardship, maybe CLA should be with someone who can. Kathy let out a soft, condescending hum. It's just money, Bruce. If you can't handle it, maybe you shouldn't have married into a better family. Something inside me snapped. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single $10 bill. Calmly, I placed it on top of the check, smoothing it out with my fingertips. Claire frowned. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I met her eyes and smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't worn in years. It means, I said, standing up and adjusting my jacket, that you and your family can go. Screw yourselves. If you guys claim that you are the better family, then be the better family and pay up. And if you guys cannot pay, tell that sister and that old hag to find a better man to pay in your behalf. I am out. Her mouth fell open. Bruce. I turned on my heel and walked away. She scrambled to her feet. Bruce! Don't you dare walk away from me! I didn't stop. She shouted my name again, her voice sharp, cutting through the quiet murmurs of the restaurant. I kept walking. The cold night air hit my face as I stepped outside, my hands steady, not trembling from rage. This time, just certainty. I had let this go on for too long. CLA and her family had been testing me for years, pushing boundaries, seeing how much I would take before I broke. Turns out they finally had their answer tonight. I broke. I walked to my car, sliding into the driver's seat. I wasn't even sure where I was going. I just knew I couldn't go home. Not yet, as I pulled onto the street. The realization settled in with crystal clarity. This marriage was over, she just didn't know it yet. I drove aimlessly through the city, the neon glow of streetlights flickering in my rearview mirror. The dashboard clock read 11:27 p.m. But I wasn't ready to go home. The word felt hollow. It wasn't home anymore. It was a trap, a place where I was nothing more than a paycheck, a stepping stone for Claire and her family to climb higher. I replayed the dinner in my head, the smug looks, the way she tossed the bill at me like I was nothing more than a human wallet. Go ahead. Pay it. It's your job. If you don't like it, get a divorce. The words seared into my mind, branding me with their finality. She didn't respect me. She never. I should have left her years ago. I turned onto a Quay Street, the city lights fading behind me. I needed time to think, to process, but the anger burned hotter with every passing second. They wanted to ridicule me now. It's time to feel my wrath. The phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Claire. I ignored it a second time, a third, by the fourth. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. She had some nerve calling me after what she pulled tonight. When it rang the fifth time, I picked up, my voice sharp and cold. There was no arrogance in her tone now, no condescension, just fear. Come home now. I gripped the steering wheel with my free hand. Why, a shaky breath. Someone broke in silence, stretched between us. A pause. Then click. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my pulse hammering for a moment. I debated whether this was just another game, a manipulation tactic, some desperate ploy to guilt me into coming back. But no. This felt different. Claire never sounded scared. Claire never needed me for anything. And now she was begging. I made a U-turn so fast the tires screeched against the asphalt. My mind raced, torn between anger and concern. But my instincts had already decided I was going back when I pulled into the driveway. The house was eerily dark. The only light came from the dim glow of the porch bulb, casting long shadows across the front lawn. My stomach tightened. Something wasn't right. CLA stood outside, arms wrapped around herself, pacing barefoot. Her silk dress from dinner was wrinkled, her hair disheveled like she had been pulling at it the moment she saw my car. She ran toward me, gripping my arm. Thank God you're here." I didn't respond. My mind was already scanning the house, the driveway, the street behind us. Everything looked normal, but something fell off. "Tell me what happened," I said, keeping my voice level. CLA swallowed hard. I was upstairs changing when I heard a noise downstairs. Footsteps. Then the power went out. I frowned. "Power's out," she nodded. I tried turning on the lights. Nothing worked. I grabbed my phone and hid in the closet. I studied her, searching for any sign of deception. CLA was a lot of things. Manipulative, cunning, selfish, but she wasn't a liar. When it came to fear, and right now she was terrified. I reached for the front door handle. It swung open too easily, unlocked. My stomach tightened. CL never left doors unlocked. She gripped my wrist. "Don't go in," called the police. I ignored her and stepped inside. The silence was suffocating. My footsteps felt too loud against the hardwood floor as I moved through the entryway. Out of instinct, I reached for the light switch. Nothing. I pulled out my phone, its screen casting a dim glow in the darkness. The air felt thick, almost like the walls were holding their breath. Then I saw at the back door. It was open just slightly, just enough for someone to have slipped out. I moved quickly, checking each room, living room, intact kitchen untouched. But when I reached the bedroom, my stomach dropped. Clay's jeweler box lay open, its compartments empty. Her purse was spilled across the floor, its contents scattered, and the safe, the one where she kept emergency cash, was wide open. Gutted CLA appeared in the doorway. Behind me, her hands clutched to her chest the moment she saw the mess. She gasped, "My money's gone." I turned slowly, my expression unreadable. How much her voice trembled. Everything, my diamonds, my emergency cash gone. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. Call the police. She hesitated. That was all I needed to know. I took a slow step toward her, my pulse hammering. CLA, call the police. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Red flag, a storm of realization, hit me all at once. The tension in her shoulders, the way she refused to meet my eyes, the hesitation before answering me. I wasn't stupid. This wasn't just a break-in. CLA knew something I didn't, and she was hiding it. Her voice finally came barely above a whisper. "We can't." The breath left my lungs in a slow, cold exhale. "Why not?" She chewed on her lip, her entire body too stiff. Then, without looking at me, she said it. "Because I think I know who did this." My stomach dropped. The room around us felt smaller, the shadows stretching longer. I took another step toward her, my voice barely above a whisper. "Claire, what did you do?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I already knew. I stood in the dimly lit bedroom, my gaze fixed on CLA, who still hadn't answered my question. "What did you?" CLA's arms tightened around herself, her body language screaming guilt. The silence between us stretched thick and suffocating, filling every inch of the house, a house that suddenly no longer felt like mine. The bedroom was a mess, her purse overturned. The safe emptied, the jewelry box looted. Yet despite the wreckage, nothing else had been touched. No broken windows, no forced entry, no ransacked living room. This wasn't random. Whoever had done this knew exactly what they were looking for, and CLA knew exactly who they were. I took a slow step toward her. She flinched. "CLA." My voice was steady, but my patience was razor thin. "Who did this?" Her teeth caught her lip, her eyes darting toward the door like she was considering bolting. I stepped in, front of her, blocking her path. "You're not leaving until you tell me the truth." Her breath hitched. "It's complicated, uncomplicated." Her shoulders slumped, and finally she spoke. "I think it was Antonio." The name meant nothing to me, but the way she said it, the way her voice dropped to a whisper, like just saying it out loud was dangerous, made something cold slither down my spine. "Who the hell is Antonio?" I asked, her jaw clenched, and for a moment she looked like she wanted to lie. Then finally, she sighed. "He's someone I owe money to." The words hit like a hammer to my chest. I stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. "Owe money too." She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. How much silence? That was all the answer I needed. I took a deep breath, forcing down the burning frustration rising inside me. How much? CLA, her lips parted, and when she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. 50. Zizugman, the room tilted. I had to take a step back, like the air had been punched out of my lungs. 50,000. I let out a hollow, disbelieving laugh, but there was no humor in it. It tasted bitter. 50 grand CLA. I shook my head, running a hand through my hair. "What the hell did you even need that much money for?" Her lower lip trembled. I thought I could turn a profit." "A profit?" I repeated, my voice flat. She nodded quickly, like she needed to convince herself more than me. "I invested it. I was going to. Surprise, you maybe book that Europe trip you always talked about. Buy us a new car." I cut her off. "Invested at where Claire stocks crypto." What? She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. My hands bowled into fists. "You gambled it away?" "Didn't you?" Her mouth opened, then closed. Guilt flashed across her face. I let out another bitter laugh, shaking my head. Unbelievable. For years I had sacrificed for this marriage, worked overtime, paid the bills, covered her unnecessary spending because she had convinced me she needed to enjoy life, and all this time she was blowing 50 grand on get-rich-quick schemes I was trying to help us. She whispered, her voice trembling. "Help," I scoffed. "You just got us robbed." "CLA, that's not help, that's selfish. And stupid." Her face twisted in frustration. "I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did." I gestured around the wrecked bedroom. "And now we're standing in our looted house because of you. So tell me, what's the next step? You think Antonio is just going to let this go?" Her breath came faster, panic creeping into her expression. "I was going to pay him back. I had a plan." "Oh yeah." I stepped closer, forcing her to meet my gaze. "What was your plan?" "CLA. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you. We're just hoping this would all magically disappear." She looked away. Her silence answered for her. That was it. That was the moment I knew our marriage was dead. Not because of the money, not because of the robbery, but because I didn't trust her anymore. And trust, once broken, is almost impossible to fix. I turned and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" She asked, her voice shaking to think I didn't look back, because if I stay in this house any longer, I'm not sure what I'll do. CLA had betrayed me. She had dragged me into her mess, all while treating me like nothing more than an ATM, and now someone dangerous was after her, which meant they were after me as well. I stepped outside, letting the cold night air hit my face. The street was eerily quiet, too quiet. Something felt off. I glanced toward the end of the block. A black SUV sat parked there. Its headlights were off. No engine noise, just sitting there. A bad feeling crawled up my spine. I turned back to the house, my mind racing. CLA had lied to me. She had gambled away 50-0-0. She had brought danger to our doorstep, and the worst part, this was only the beginning. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. I stood outside the house, staring at the black SUV parked at the end of the block. It wasn't moving. No headlights. No sound, just watching. My pulse quickened, the weight of Claw's confession pressing against my chest. $50. €000. She had borrowed it. She had lost it. And she had never thought to tell me, not when she borrowed it. Not when she lost it. Not even when she knew she couldn't pay it back. And now our home had been robbed, and some stranger in an unmarked SUV was watching us. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about survival. I turned back toward the house, my mind racing. I had a choice: walk away from this mess before it dragged me under, or step inside and figure out just how deep Claire had buried herself. I hated that I still cared. I hated that a part of me still felt responsible for her. With a sharp exhale, I walked back inside. CLA was still in the bedroom, standing exactly where I had left her, staring at the empty jewelry box. She looked smaller now, not the same woman who had laughed at me over dinner, pushing a $9 bill in my direction like it was a joke. No, this CLA was different. This CLA was scared. Good, she should be. Check everything, I said. My voice sharp and controlled, she blinked, fingers tightening around the edge of a dress. Her what? Check your accounts. Your credit cards, your safe. I want to know exactly how much is missing. She hesitated. I exhaled slowly, forcing my voice to stay level now. CLA? Her hands trembled as she grabbed her phone, scrolling through her banking app. Her breath hitched. My checking account, it's empty. I clenched my jaw. How much was in there? Almost 800. A bitter laugh escaped me. 8 grand, not even close to what she owed, but still enough to sting. What about your savings? She checked, then froze slowly. She lifted her eyes to mine, and for the first time tonight I saw real panic. They took everything. My fingers curled into fists. Everything, without another word. I turned on my heel, striding toward the closet. We kept a small safe in there. Emergency cash, important documents, passports. The door was slightly ajar. The electronic keypad blinking, waiting for an input. It had been forced open. I yanked the door wider. Empty, the cash gone, my passport on the floor. Thank God. A wave of cold fury spread through my veins. I turned back to CLA. How did they get the code, Claire? My voice was tight, barely containing. My anger, her face paled. I don't know. Try again. I took a slow step toward her, my voice dangerously low. This wasn't a random break-in. They knew exactly where to look. They knew about the safe, the accounts, the jewelry. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting away CLA. Her silence stretched long and damning. Then in a whisper she said, I told Antonio about it. The room tilted. I squeezed my eyes shut for half a second, pressing my fingers to the bridge of my nose. You what? My voice came out sharp. Cutting through the thick silence between us, Claire flinched. I didn't think no. I cut her off, stepping closer. You didn't think that's the problem, Claire? You never think. She swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the edge of the dresser like it could somehow anchor her. You owed a loan shark 50 grand and your best idea was to tell him where we keep our emergency cash. She winced. I thought he'd understand. I was going to use some of it to start paying him back. I stared at her, stunned by how casually. She said it as if she hadn't just handed a blueprint to a criminal. You just gave him a roadmap to rob us, CLA. Her lower lip trembled. I didn't think he'd actually do it. A bitter, sharp laugh escaped me. You don't owe money to people like Antonio and expect mercy. Claire, you don't gamble with money. You don't have. You don't. I stopped. Mid-sentence, a new thought was forming in my head, a darker, colder thought. What if this wasn't just about Antonio collecting his debt? My gaze swept across the room. Again the safe. The missing money. The timing of it all. CLA humiliating me at dinner. Slapping down an $8. $800. Bill like it was nothing, and then suddenly we get robbed. And now she's standing here expecting me to fix everything. My stomach turned. I had been played. I exhaled slowly, leveling her with an icy stare. Tell me the truth. CLA. Her eyes widened. What did you stage this? Her mouth fell open. No, I would never. I took a step forward, lowering my voice. Wouldn't you? She shook her head frantically. Bruce, I swear, because I've been thinking. I went on, voice calm but deadly. You humiliated me at dinner. You pushed a $9 bill at me like it was a joke. And now suddenly our house is robbed and you're broke. I let the silence stretch between us, let her feel the weight of my words. Convenient, isn't it? Her breath hitched. You think I... She choked on the words, her hands trembling. I would never. I scoffed. You already lied about the money, CLA. Why should I believe anything you say? Her arms wrapped around herself, shaking her head rapidly. I swear, I didn't set this up. I didn't want this to happen. I studied her carefully, the way her breathing hitched, the way her fingers clenched around her phone. Maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe she wasn't. Either way, I was done. I turned toward the bedroom door. What are you doing? She asked, panic creeping into her voice. I'm leaving. Her breath hitched. Wait, where are you going? We need to figure this out. I stopped in the doorway, glancing back. There's no we anymore. Claire, for the first time. That night I saw fear in her eyes. Not the fear of Antonio. Not the fear of missing money. Fear of being alone. She knew I was done. Her voice cracked as she called my name, but I didn't stop. I grabbed my jacket, my car keys, and stepped out. Into the cold night air. The black SUV was gone, but I had a feeling this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I drove without a destination, the city lights blurring past as my mind raced. Claire had gambled away $50. 0 to a man like Antonio. She had lied to me about it, and now because of her recklessness, we had been robbed. No, she had been robbed, but somehow I was the one paying for it. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. My jaw ached from how hard I had been clenching it since I left the house. Every part of me burned with frustration, not just because of the money, not just because of the robbery, but because I had been so stupid for years. I had convinced myself that CLA was just careless, not malicious, that her spending habits were just bad decisions, not intentional selfishness, But this was betrayal. She had taken out a loan $50, or as a zero, without telling me she had gambled it away like it was playing with money. And when she couldn't pay it back, she had let a criminal right to our home. The worst part, she hadn't even told me out of guilt. She told me because she had no choice. I pulled into a dark parking lot and cut the engine, my hands shaking as I ran them over my face. I needed to think, how deep was she in? How dangerous was Antonio? And most importantly, how the hell was I getting out of this mess as if on cue? My phone buzzed. CLA. I ignored it. A minute later it rang again, then a text. Please, come home, we need to talk. I let out a humorless laugh. Now she wanted to talk. I stared at the screen, my mind churning. I could ignore her. I could walk away right now and let her deal with the hellstorm she created. But if Antonio was serious, if he had actually robbed us, this wasn't over, and I needed answers. With a deep breath, I started the car and turned back toward home. When I stepped inside, CLA was sitting on the couch, her legs curled under her. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, her usual perfect posture gone, her confidence stripped away. Good. She should feel small. She should feel exactly how she made me feel at that damn dinner table. She looked up, her face pale. I didn't think you'd come back, she said softly. Neither did I replied, closing the door behind me. She swallowed hard. Please sit. Let me explain. I didn't move. No more games, Claire. No more lies. Start from the beginning. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. I met Antonio through a friend. He helps people invest. I thought it was legit. I let out a sharp laugh. And how did that work out for you? She winced. I gave him 10 grand to start, he said. It would double in a month, and it did. My stomach twisted. You actually got money back? She nodded at first. Yes, it felt easy, like I'd found a shortcut. I exhaled slowly, and then she swallowed hard. I reinvested more money this time, 20. And then 30. But I got greedy. I didn't pull out when I should have, and suddenly the money was gone. Gone. I repeated, my voice flat. Claire's hands trembled as she wiped at her eyes. Antonio said it was a bad trade, that I should invest more to recover my losses. I closed my eyes, my head pounding. And you did? She nodded miserably. 50. I stared at her in disbelief. CLA, you thought throwing in even more money would fix it. Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't care. She had destroyed us with her stupidity, and when you couldn't pay him back, I pressed. Her lips trembled. He started threatening me. My heart pounded, how her fingers shook as she wiped her face. Texts, calls. He said he'd take what he was owed, that if I didn't pay soon, he'd come collecting. I felt my blood run cold. So you told him about the safe? She nodded, misery all over her face. I thought if he saw we didn't have enough, he'd back off. But instead, he sent people to take whatever they could. I clenched my jaw, anger surging through me. You let him inside our home. CLA. She started crying harder. I didn't know what else to do. I turned away, hands on my hips, trying to breathe through the fury. This wasn't just a bad decision. This was betrayal, not just to me, but to our home, to our safety. How much time did he give you? I asked. CL hesitated, just for a second. But that was all it took. How much time? Her shoulders shook. He wants the money by tomorrow. The world tilted beneath me. Tomorrow, I snapped, and you. Just telling me this now. She sobbed into her hands. I was scared. Rage flared through me, white hot and blinding. I grabbed the nearest chair and hurled it against the wall. The wood splintered, the sound cracking through the house like a gunshot. Claire jumped, gasping, her eyes wide with terror. You were scared. My voice was raw. You weren't scared when you were taking his money. You weren't scared when you were gambling it all away. But now that you've put both of us in danger now, you want to cry. She whimpered, her breath hitching. Please don't yell. I exhaled sharply, forcing myself to calm down. Yelling wouldn't fix this, crying wouldn't fix this. I needed a plan. How does Antonio usually collect his debts? She wiped at her tear-streaked face, sniffling. Sometimes he just takes valuables, but if someone owes a lot, she hesitated again. My patience snapped, CLA. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. He makes them work for him. A sick feeling settled in my gut. Work. How she didn't. Answer. But I already knew men like Antonio didn't just loan money, they owned people in CLA. She had just put herself on his list. The house was silent, except for CLA's uneven breathing. She sat curled on the couch, her knees pulled to her chest, clutching. Her arms like she was trying to hold herself together. I stood in the doorway, staring at her, my mind racing. Antonio wanted his money by tomorrow. We didn't have it, and now CLA was telling me that if she couldn't pay, he'd make her work for him. She never said what that meant, but I didn't need details. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling slowly. Think we had nothing left. No savings, no emergency cash. I had separate accounts Claire couldn't touch, but even if I drained everything, it wouldn't add up to 50 grand overnight, and even if it did, why should I save her? She did this. She put us in this mess. She had humiliated me, lied to me, gambled away our safety and let a criminal into our home, and now she expected me to fix it. I clenched my jaw. No, I wouldn't be her safety net anymore. Without another word, I turned toward the stairs. Where are you going? Clay's voice was small, trembling to sleep. She flinched. But what do we do? I don't know, CLA. I didn't look at her. You figure it. Out, and for the first time in our marriage, I meant it. I left her sitting there, her soft cries filling the empty house as I walked away. I barely slept. Not because of Claire, not because of the money, but because something about this entire situation felled off the robbery, the timing, the fact that Antonio had waited until tonight to take everything. This wasn't just about debt. This was about control. Men like Antonio didn't just take money. They took power. A chill crawled up my spine. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. 3:12 a.m. I woke up to a sound, a knock, slow, deliberate. My stomach tightened, sliding out of bed. Silently, I grabbed the bat from under my nightstand. The house was dark, the only light coming from the dim glow of the street. Lamps outside, another knock, 3 times even, unhurried. I moved through the hallway, my heart hammering when I reached the living room. CLA was already there, standing by the door. Frozen. Don't open it, I ordered. She flinched, but didn't move. I stepped, closer, gripping the bat tighter. The locks were still in place. Who is it? I called out. Silence, then a voice. Calm, smooth, dangerous. Good evening. I didn't recognize it. We looking for CLA? A cold weight settled in my chest. I glanced at CLA. Her face had gone pale. Her fingers clutching the hem of her shirt. She knew exactly who it was. Antonio. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my pulse. She's not available, I said evenly. A pause, then a chuckle. I think you misunderstand, my friend. She owes me, and I always collect. I exchanged a look with Claire. She was shaking. I turned back to the door. Check pay you, just not tonight. Oh, I know she will something. In his tone made the hair on my arms rise. He wasn't just here to talk. He was testing me. I tightened my grip on the bat. Come back in the morning. Another pause. Then the sound of a lighter flicking, a deep inhale. I think I'll wait right here. My blood went cold. Claire whimpered beside me. I leaned toward her, whispering, go to the bedroom. Lock the door. She hesitated now. CLA. She swallowed hard, then ran. I turned back to the door, my mind racing. He wasn't leaving, and if I let this continue, he'd push further. I had to make a choice. I unlocked the deadbolt and swung the door open. Antonio stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in all black. Behind him 2 men stood like statues, their expressions blank. He smiled, a predator smile. "Ow, that's better," he said smoothly. I didn't step aside. didn't let him in. You took what was in the house, I said coldly. That should be enough. His smile widened. It's not. He took a step forward. I didn't move. The air between us was thick, the kind of tension that only existed when two men knew that one of them had to break first. Sheck, get your money, I said. Antonio exhaled slowly. Oh, I know she will, but see, I like to ensure cooperation. I clenched my jaw, which means his eyes gleamed, which means she starts working off the debt. Now, I took a step forward, gripping the bat tight. Sheck, not going anywhere with you. My voice was steady, but my fists clenched at my sides. One of Antonio's men shifted, and the other reached into his jacket. But Antonio lifted a hand, stopping them. He exhaled slowly, flicking the cigarette onto my porch. You're brave. I like that. His smirk deepened fine. You have until tomorrow night, 50-50 grand, no more stalling. I didn't answer. Antonio smiled as if he already knew how this would end. See you soon. Then he turned and walked back toward the black SUV, his men falling in a step behind him. I watched. As they drove off, my entire body coiled so tightly I thought I might snap. When I finally closed the door, I heard CLA sobbing in the hallway. I turned to look at her, sitting against the wall with her arms wrapped around her knees, her whole body trembling. I should have felt sorry for her. I didn't. She had done this to herself, to us, and the worst part, I wasn't sure she even cared. You lied to me, I said, my voice low. Controlled, she sniffled, but didn't answer. You lied about the money, about Antonio. You let him inside our home. I took a slow step closer, my fists still clenched, and now you expect me to fix it. Her head snapped up, her tear-streaked face twisting with something ugly. I didn't expect any of this to happen, she snapped. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. You didn't expect to lose 50 grand. You didn't expect a loan shark to come after you. I shook my head. You gambled CLA, and you lost. Her fear flickered, replaced with something else. Resentment. Oh, so now you're the perfect husband, she sneered, like you've never made mistakes. I took another step toward her, my voice dropping. My mistakes didn't get us robbed. My mistakes didn't put us in debt to a man who will take everything from us if we don't pay him back. My mistakes didn't betray the person who was supposed to be my partner. She flinched, but I wasn't done. So don't sit there and act like this is just another argument, I said. This is life and death. CLA. Her lower lip trembled. I know. Do you? I shot back because you've spent this entire time making excuses instead of admitting what you did. She sucked in a shaky breath. What do you want me to say? The truth. Her mouth opened. But I cut her off, and not just about the money, about everything. She froze. My pulse pounded as I took another step closer. What aren't you telling me? Silence stretched between us. My patient snapped, CLA fine. She blurted out. I stiffened, watching her wipe at her face with trembling fingers. Antonio isn't just a loan shark. Me stomach twisted. What she hesitated. Play there. If you lie to me one more time, I swear to God I dated him. She whispered. The air left my lungs. I stared at her, unable to process the words. You, my head shook slowly. You were with him. She nodded, eyes dropping to the floor. A rush of rage shot through me so fast I had to grip the edge of the table just to stay upright. So this isn't just about money, I said coldly. It's about him. About you. She swallowed hard. It was a long time ago, does he know? That her silence was enough of an answer. I turned away. My hand shaking. This wasn't just debt. This was personal. And now everything made sense. The way Antonio had smiled at me like he already owned something of mine. The way CLA had hesitated when I asked how deep she was in the threats. Antonio wasn't just collecting money. He was collecting her. This was not just paying him money, she was screwing him as well. I exhaled slowly, trying to force my brain to think through the rage this changed. Everything. If Antonio wanted revenge, if this was about me, as much as it was about CLA, then no amount of money would fix this. He would come for us no matter what. And CLA. She knew it. She had known it all along. You should have told me, I said CLA. Let out a choked SOB. I was scared of what I snapped that I'd leave, that I'd find out you weren't just reckless but a liar. To you were screwing him was that, not scary. Was it fun? What was your plan to pay him $50? All day you zero by being his hooker. She didn't answer because we both knew the truth. She had never planned on telling me if I hadn't pushed. She would have let Antonio bleed us dry. Or worse, I ran a hand through my hair. My thoughts racing. I needed a plan. Needed to get out of this, but most of all I needed to decide one thing: was Claire worth saving? I turned to look at her, watching as she wiped at her face, her shoulders shaking. She looked pathetic, small, and for the first time in years I didn't feel the urge to comfort her. I felt nothing at all. I'll handle this, I finally said. Her head snapped up. How? Don't worry about it. She swallowed hard. You're not going to do anything crazy, are you? I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. Go to bed. CLA. She hesitated, but when I didn't say anything else, she jumped at the sharpness in my voice and hurried upstairs without another word. I stood in the dark, listening to the silence settle around me. This was the moment I stopped being the fool in this marriage, the moment I stopped cleaning up her messes, because I wasn't going to bail her out this time. I was going to end this. And Antonio, he had no idea what was coming for him. The house was quiet, too quiet. CLA was upstairs, but I knew she wasn't sleeping. She was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was going to do next. She should be worried because for the first time since this mess started, I wasn't thinking about how to protect her. I was thinking about how to protect myself. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands clasped in front of me, my mind racing. Antonio had made it clear I had until tomorrow night to pay him, but even if I got the money, what then? Would he really just walk away? No men like him didn't just walk away. Antonio wasn't after money anymore. He was after power. He wanted control over CLA, and if I let him take it, I knew it wouldn't end there. He'd come back again and again until I had nothing left. No, this had to end tonight. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts. My thumb hovered over a name. I hesitated, then tapped it. The call rang once, twice. Then a voice answered. Didn't think I'd hear from you again? I exhaled slowly. Yeah, well, I need a favor. A pause. Then a low chuckle. This favor, is it legal? Not exactly. That's what I thought. Silence stretched between us. Then finally tell me everything I did. 2 hours later, I was dressed in black jeans, a hoodie, gloves. I moved quietly, every step calculated. I had left the house through the back door, making sure Claire wouldn't hear me leave. Not that she cared. She had done nothing to fix this mess. No solutions, no apologies. Just silence, but silence wouldn't save us. So I had called someone who could. Someone who owed me, someone who wasn't afraid to get their hands dirty. I reached the address, and Antonio had texted CLA earlier, the one she had ignored. But I hadn't a cheap rental house on the bad side of town. The lights were off, and a few cars were parked. Haphazard out front, my guy was already waiting in a car across the street. You sure about this? He asked as I slid into the passenger seat. Do I have another choice? He smirked. No, you don't. We sat there watching, waiting. I could feel my heart beat in my throat, then movement. The front door opened, and a figure stepped outside Antonio. He was alone. No guards this time, no backup. Just him lighting a cigarette, standing on his porch like he had all the time in the world. I took a slow breath. Let him do this. We moved fast, silent. By the time Antonio heard us, it was too late. He turned just as my guy grabbed him from behind, shoving him against the wall. His cigarette hit the ground, rolling onto the pavement. The hell Antonio started, but I cut him off. I stepped in front of him, staring into his wide, furious eyes. "Change of plans," I said flatly. His lips curled into a smirk. "You came to pay up after all." I punched him hard in the gut. He let out a choked gasp, doubling over wrong answer. I grabbed his shirt and shoved him back against the wall. My guy pressed a knee into Antonio's back, keeping him in place. 50 grand, I murmured. "That's what she owes you." Antonio coughed, spitting onto the pavement. "She owes me a lot more than that." "Oh." I know. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "See, I figured it out. Antonio, this isn't about money. It's about CLA. Something flickered in his eyes. "She didn't tell you everything, did she?" he said, his voice taunting, despite the position he was in. "No, I admit it. But I'm not stupid." I tightened my grip on his shirt. "She used you, didn't she? Played you just like she played me." His jaw clenched. There, it was the real reason he wanted her back. It wasn't just business, it was personal. "Here's the thing, Antonio," I continued, "I don't give a damn about Claire anymore, but I'm not letting you use her to come after me." His smirk returned. "And what are you going to do about it?" I smiled. "I'm glad you asked." I stepped aside, letting my guy move in. Antonio barely had time to react before he was dragged toward the car. What the hey, he struggled, but we were stronger. Seconds later, the trunk slammed shut, dark, secure. He wasn't going anywhere. I took a deep breath, wiping my hands on my jeans. "What now?" my guy asked. I exhaled. We let him think for a while. "And CLA?" I glanced toward the house, my stomach twisting. Check. Not my problem anymore. For hours later, I walked back into the house, closing the door behind me. CLA was still awake. She sat on the couch, her knees drawn up, looking up at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Where were you?" she whispered. I stared at her. A million answers ran through my head, but only one felt right: fixing your mistakes. Her mouth opened, then closed. She knew better than to ask. I walked past her, heading upstairs. I was done explaining myself. She had made her choices, and now so had I. Tomorrow, Antonio wouldn't be a problem, and neither would Claire, because when the sun came up, I was walking away from this life, from her, from all of it, and I wasn't looking back. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of CLA, not because of Antonio, but because, for the first time in a long time, I felt calm. Everything was clear now. CLA had lied to me, betrayed me, humiliated me, and expected me to clean up her mess. Antonio had threatened me, robbed me, tried to use my wife as a pawn in his twisted game. And now I had turned the tables. Antonio was gone, and CLA, she would be next. The first light of dawn crept through the curtains as I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection. I looked different. No more tension in my jaw, no more anger simmering beneath my skin. I looked like a man freeing himself. A knock at the door, soft, hesitant. "Bruce, are you awake?" Clay's voice. I wiped my face with a towel, then opened the door. She stood there in an oversized sweatshirt, arms wrapped around herself, her face pale from a night of no sleep. "You left last night," she said carefully. "Where did you go?" I stared at her for a long moment. Then I stepped past her. No answer. No reaction. Just silence. That's when she panicked. "Wait!" She grabbed my arm. "What's going to happen to Antonio?" I turned my head slowly. "Why do you care?" Her grip loosened. "I just want to know if we're safe." CLA stammered. I smirked. "We—" She flinched at the way I said it, pulling my arm free. I walked toward the kitchen and made myself a cup of coffee, moving as if nothing was wrong, as if we were just a normal husband and wife starting another peaceful morning together. CLA hovered nearby, watching me, waiting for an explanation. She wouldn't get. She didn't deserve it. Instead, I sat down at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, letting the silence stretch. "You're scaring me," she admitted. I glanced up at her, my face blank. Good. Her breath hitched. What does that mean? I set my mug down, tilting my head slightly. You're not stupid, Clay? A pause then. Realization flickered across her face. Her lips parted slightly. You did something, she whispered. I smiled. She took a slow step, stepped backward. What did you do? I exhaled, leaning back in my chair. Let's just say Antonio won't be bothering us anymore. She swallowed hard. I cut her off. I didn't kill him if that's what you're thinking, but let's just say he won't be making threats anytime soon. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe I had become someone new. Someone who didn't let himself get used, manipulated, controlled. CLA let out a shaky breath, running a hand through her hair. So it's over, she whispered. I chuckled. The AUD. It for me, yes, I said. She blinked. What do you mean? I stood grabbing my coffee mug and walking toward the sink. Done CLA. Her face paled. On? I turned to face her, my voice calm, unshakable. I'm leaving. The words hit her like a slap. She took a step forward, her eyes wide. Wait, no, you can't just, I said firmly, and I am. She shook her head, panic flashing across her face. We can fix this, she pleaded. I almost laughed. Fix what? The debt? The lies, the fact that you let another man into our home and thought, I'd just keep forgiving you. Tears filled her eyes. I made mistakes. No CLA, I said coldly. You made choices. She pressed a hand to her mouth, her whole body trembling. I walked past her, heading toward the bedroom. I grabbed the small bag I had packed. The night before, not much, just clothes, my essentials, my passport, everything else she could keep. I didn't want anything that tied me to this life anymore. Please, Claire whispered behind me. I zipped up my bag, ignoring the tremor in her voice. She took a step toward me, her eyes desperate. Don't do this. I can fix it. I can know. CLA. I cut her off, her breath. Hitched. You had your chance over and over again, and every time you chose yourself, you chose money. You chose lies. A tear slipped down her cheek. I love you, she whispered. I stared at her for a long moment, then shook my head. No. CLA, you love control and you lost it. I turned and walked toward the front door. Please don't go, she begged, her voice cracking. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. For a second I almost turned back, but then I remembered the dinner bill. The laughter, the way she had pushed the receipt toward me and told me to pay it or get divorced. She had made her choice, so I made mine. I opened the door goodbye. CLA, then I walked out. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my new apartment. Small, but mine, my name on the lease, my own space. I hadn't spoken to CLA since I left. I didn't need to. One morning my phone rang a number. I recognized a mutual friend. You won't believe what happened to CLA. He said. I smirked. Try me, Antonio's people turned on her. She tried to get another loan to fix her situation, but it backfired. She's got nothing left. I exhaled slowly. Feeling nothing, and her family cut her off the moment. You left poetic justice. I sipped my coffee, staring out at the city. CL had built a house of lies, and now she was watching it burn. Karma was a beautiful thing, and I was finally free. 2 weeks had passed since I walked out of that house, leaving Claire and her mess behind, and every single day since I had woken up feeling lighter. Freer, it was like I had been holding my breath for years, drowning in expectations, manipulation, and Claire's never-ending selfishness. Now, finally I could breathe. Again I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, sipping my coffee as the morning sun bathed the city in warm light. The apartment wasn't much, just a one-bedroom, sparsely furnished, no luxury, no grandeur like the house CLA and I had shared, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I didn't have to worry about who was plotting against me in my own home. No backstabbing, no lies, no waking up to find my bank account drained because Claire had decided she needed another shopping spree. Just peace, and I had earned it. My phone buzzed beside me, breaking my thoughts. I glanced at the screen. Claire, I smirked. Of course, she had been calling for days, texting, emailing, even trying to reach me on social media. I had ignored every attempt. She wasn't sorry, she was just alone, and CLA didn't know how to survive without someone cleaning up her messes. I let the phone ring until it stopped. Not a minute later, a notification popped up. A voicemail. Curious. I put the phone on speaker and played. Her voice came through shaky and desperate. Please just call me back, I need to talk to you. I took another sip of coffee. Unmoved. I know I screwed up. Okay. I was selfish. I should have told you everything from the start. I should have treated you better, but you just... Her voice cracked, followed by a choked SOB. You just left. I raised an eyebrow. I left. Was that what she told herself, that she had no part in driving me away? I'm scared. She continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Antonio's people are after me. I have nothing left. No money. No family. My parents won't even answer my calls. Kathy won't talk to me. I don't know what to do. I could almost picture her, curled up in whatever cheap motel she was probably staying in now. Her world, crumbling around her karma. It really was a beautiful thing. The voicemail on, I don't want money, I don't want anything. I just want to see you. I let out a quiet laugh. See me, she hadn't wanted to see me when she was pushing an $800 dinner bill in my direction. She hadn't wanted to see me when she was lying to my face about her debt. She had only ever seen me as a resource, a means to an end. And now that she had no means left, she thought I'd come running back. The voicemail ended. I deleted it without a second thought. Later that afternoon, I met up with a friend for lunch. Mike had been the one to tell me about Claire's downfall, about how Antonio's people had turned on her when they realized she had nothing left to give. So Mike said, taking a sip of his beer, she reached out again, didn't she? I smirked. Yep. He shook his head, letting out a low chuckle. Man, I bet she never saw this coming. No, I said, she never thought I'd leave, and that was the truth. Claire had spent our entire marriage pushing boundaries, testing limits, seeing how much she could take from me before I snapped. She had thought I would always be there, that no matter how badly she treated me, I would stay because I was the nice guy, the loyal husband, the one who always forgave. She had miscalculated. Mike leaned back in his chair, watching me closely. You seem different, he said, tilting his head. Good, different. I smirked. Yeah. He nodded, lighter, happier. I exhaled slowly, glancing out the window. At the bustling streets I am. And for the first time in years, I really was. I wasn't carrying someone else's problems on my shoulders. I wasn't worried about fixing anything. I was just living. So, what's next? Mike asked, taking a sip of his beer. I shrugged. Whatever I want, and that was the best part. No more family dinners with people who hated me. No more waking up to find my bank account mysteriously drained. No more walking on eggshells in my own home. Just freedom. CLA would figure out her own life. Or she wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. A week later, I filed for divorce. CLA was served at her parents' home, and the fallout was immediate. They tried to call me, her mother, her sister, even her father, who had barely spoken to me during our marriage, but I shut them all down without hesitation. Her mother was the first to get through. The moment I answered, she launched into some self-righteous speech about how marriage was about commitment, about working through problems. I let her talk for about 30 seconds before cutting in. Go find CLA a better man. Then, I said flatly. Then, I hung up. Her sister tried next that conversation. Let's just say I wasn't very nice. I didn't sugarcoat anything, and I definitely didn't hold back. I called her some very choice words, then suggested she and Claire started new profession together since they both seemed so talented at screwing people over. She shrieked something at me before I ended the call. I didn't care enough to listen. By the end of the day, I had blocked every single one of them. They weren't my problem anymore. 1 month later, it took about a month for the messages to finally stop. The call slowed, then disappeared altogether. CLA had moved on, or more likely, she had found some other poor soul to latch onto. But me, I was better than ever. I had picked up an old hobby. Again, guitar, something I had put aside for years. Because CLA had called it a waste of time, I had started working out more, getting back in shape, feeling stronger than I had in years. I even booked a solo trip to the mountains. Something CLA would have never let me do because she needed attention 24/7. Now, I didn't have to ask for permission. I didn't have to explain myself. I just did what made me happy, and damn, it felt amazing. 9 months later, it was over. The divorce was finalized, and I never had to deal with CLA directly. My lawyer handled everything. It was messy, like I knew it would be. But in the end, the truth came out. My lawyer proved that Claire had been stealing money from our joint accounts and gambling it away. The judge didn't take kindly to that. He made sure every dollar she had wasted was deducted from our final settlement. In the end, I had to pay her about $20. But it was done no more. Screaming matches, no more manipulation, no more mind games, just silence. Mike and I sat at the bar that night. Whiskey glasses in hand, he smirked as he lifted his drink. So how does it feel officially free? I swirled the amber liquid in my glass before taking a slow sip like I just got out of prison. He let out a low chuckle. Yeah. I bet you got screwed though, 20 grand. I shrugged. I did the math. If I had hired a hooker for all the years I was married, it would have cost me about the same. Mike nearly choked on his drink, laughing. Damn, man, that's one way to look at it. I leaned back against the bar, exhaling slowly. That thought was a bit of a relief. A year later, I ran into Mike again at a cafe. He smirked when he saw me raising his cup in greeting, still ignoring CLA. He asked, his tone amused. I chuckled. Setting my coffee down, she stopped calling. Mike nodded approvingly and clinked his cup against mine. Good for you, man. Then he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. You hear what happened to her? I raised an eyebrow. No, should I care? His grin widened. She tried to reach out to you again. I let out a slow, satisfied exhale, shaking my head. That's funny, I said, taking a sip of my coffee because I blocked. Her months ago, Mike laughed, shaking his head. Damn, man, cooled. I just smiled. It wasn't cold, it was freedom. And freedom never tasted sweeter. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.